Hello, good evening. This is Chuck coming to you live from the Command Center. And tonight I wanted to talk to you about two types of conditionals. All right, so I want you to forget the problems of the world right now, relax, and come along with me for the ride in Chuckadelphia as we talk about the zero conditional and the first conditional. So here we go. Okay, the zero conditional is the conditional that talks about something that is true in the present. Okay, we use the simple present in the conditional clause and in the result clause. Okay, so you see here, if something happens, another thing happens as a result. Okay, and it's similar to when we say when something happens, another thing happens as a result. Okay, so commonly we use these structures for logical situations, things that usually happen, right? So if I say, if it rains, I use an umbrella. That's just like saying, when it rains, I use an umbrella. You understand? Okay. And you might say, if my cat's water bowl is empty, I put water in it right away. Notice the use of the simple present here in all of these structures. Rains, use, okay? Now, if you start a sentence with a conditional like this, when you write, you want to put a comma at the end of the conditional clause. If it rains, comma, I use an umbrella. Much like we use a comma with when we start a sentence with it as a conjunction. When it rains, comma, I use an umbrella. All right, so now let's jump back down here. If the grass is wet, it is not a good time to cut it. Okay, and that means the same as when the grass is wet, it is not a good time to cut it. You understand? All right, now we also use this conditional, the zero conditional, to talk about scientific matters. Okay, so if you heat ice, it melts. Okay, and this is like saying when you heat ice, it melts. You understand? They both mean the same thing, and that is what we call a zero conditional. Now, sometimes you will flip the order of the sentence around and put the conditional in the middle. Okay, so babies cry if they are cranky. Now, cranky means like in a bad mood, like grouchy or grumpy or something like that. If you watch Sesame Street, like many grown adults do, you'll know that Oscar the Grouch is grouchy or cranky all the time. Okay, now when you put a conditional in the middle of the sentence, you would commonly not use a comma there. When you start a sentence with a conditional, you use a comma, but in the middle, no comma, okay? And this also means babies cry when they are cranky, all right? So that is how we use the zero conditional, the zero conditional. Now, let's talk about the first conditional. The first conditional is very similar to the zero conditional, except for this one, we use the simple future in the result clause, okay? So this talks about a conditional that is true in the present and the future, okay? If something happens, see, this is the conditional clause, if something happens, and then another thing will happen or is going to happen as a result. This is what we call the result clause, okay? The independent clause is the result clause. Note that we mix up the simple present in the if clause and the simple future in the result clause. Do not use the simple future in the if clause. In other words, you want to say, if it rains, if it rains. See, that's pretty cool, like outside right now, right? You don't want to say, if it will rain, if it will rain. No, that's not a good way of using the simple future in a conditional, okay? So here are some examples of using the first conditional, okay? If the grass grows too tall, comma, we will have to cut it. There you go. If the township sees our yard is not neat, they will make us pay a small fine. All right? A small fee, like you have to pay like money in order to rectify an offense. All right? And if my head still hurts tomorrow, I'm going to see a doctor. All right? And we can change the order around. She'll be late if she is stuck in traffic. Okay, so there we go. That is the first conditional. Now, in the zero conditional, when we talked about ice, if you heat ice, it melts. Okay, in scientific structures like that, you can also use the first conditional. In other words, you can say, if you heat ice, it will melt. Okay, so see, sometimes the zero conditional and the first conditional are interrelated, very similar. Okay, so there you go. That was quick and painless. just like the ideal dentist appointment, right? Because when you go to the dentist, you want it to be fast and you want it to be painless, just like an English lesson, right? And that's why you come to Chuckadelphia. So thank you very much for coming tonight. That is all for tonight. Carpe diem, everybody. I hope you are safe. I hope you're doing well, and I hope your week is going great. Okay, all the best to you and your families. Thank you for watching. That is Chuckadelphia. This is Chuck coming to you live for Infinite English Academy and Chuckadelphia. Okay, so carpe diem, everybody. Ciao, ciao.